Tonight we're going to be talking about periods and groups on the periodic table. Obviously, periods have something to do with the periodic table. It has to do with a section of it. A period is the rows going across. So if you glance at your periodic table, a period, like the first period, is hydrogen and helium because that's the first row going across. The second row, the second period, would be lithium to neon because that's the second row going across. Third period would be sodium to argon because that's the third row going across, and you get my point, so on and so forth. A group, or typically called a family, are the columns going down. So hydrogen to francium is a family. Beryllium to radium is a family. Helium to radon is a family. Fluorine to astatine is a family. So periods are the rows. Groups or families are the columns. And if you're looking at the period on a periodic table, the rows, that's going to tell you how many energy levels an atom has. So I want you to look at your periodic table, and especially the one you did in class the other day where you drew the electrons in each energy level. If you look at hydrogen and helium, how many energy levels do they have? They only have one energy level, and they're also in the first period. If you look at lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, and neon, in your picture, you'll notice they only have two energy levels. If you look at sodium through argon, in your picture, you'll notice they only have three energy levels. So each period tells you how many energy levels that atom has. When we're looking at the groups, we're looking at how many electrons are in the outermost energy level, typically. I mean, they like to switch. Remember, electrons are kind of unfaithful. They switch around. But we're looking at the outer energy level. How many are there? And again, looking at the sheet of paper you did in class the other day where you had to draw the electrons and their energy levels, I want you to look at the family hydrogen is in. So hydrogen all the way down to potassium in your periodic table, 1 through 20. I'm looking only at 1 through 20. You'll notice that every single one of them, if you look in the outermost energy level, only has one electron. If you look at beryllium down to calcium, you'll notice that if you're looking at the outermost energy level, every single one, beryllium, magnesium, and calcium, all have two electrons in the outermost level. If you look at boron and aluminum, they have 3 electrons in the outermost level. Carbon and silicon has 4. Nitrogen and phosphorus has 5. Oxygen and sulfur has 6. Fluorine and chlorine have 7. And helium, neon, and argon have 8. So these electrons I'm referring to in the outer level, these are our valence electrons, is what I call them. And I'm abbreviate valence electrons as VE negative, because I don't like to write. So valence electrons are electrons in the outermost level, and they correlate with the family the elements are in. So carbon family has 4 electrons. Helium family always has 8 valence electrons. Hydrogen family always has 1 valence electron. So it depends on their group. So on your periodic table, if you could, and we're going to be doing lots of writing on this when we get into the classifications and the families, because each family has its name, but we're not going to worry about that right now. Just jot down that maybe at the top, just a quick little note saying that if we're looking at the columns, they are called groups or families. And they tell you the number of valence electrons. So just jot that on your periodic table as a reference. And if we're looking at rows, they are called periods. And they tell you the number of energy levels that element has. this a little smaller. Okay, so just kind of jot that down somewhere on your periodic table. And then I also want you to write the numbers. So our columns are our groups/families, and that tells you the number of valence electrons. So the hydrogen family here, we'll tell you the true name, alkali metals, later, has 1 valence electron. This family that begins with beryllium has 2 valence electrons. Valence electrons are electrons in the outer energy level. Boron has 3. Carbon has 4. Nitrogen's family has 5. Oxygen's family has 6. Fluorine's family has 7. And helium's family has 8. And you're probably wondering what's going on right here, but just don't worry about that. Those are the transition metals. They're a family too, and they do different things with their electrons. But the general rules that I'm talking about apply to the families you see where there's numbers. And then down the periods, I want you to also label hydrogen and helium have 1 energy level. Lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, and neon have 2, and so on. So the periodic table is actually organized really well. There's definitely some thought that has gone into assembling this based on the structure and behavior of the elements. Essentially, they're electrons, protons, and neutrons. So now I want to talk a little bit. We'll skip this. Let's not do this. Have a good night, guys. I hope you have a great, great, great night.